Welcome to the Tom Matt Show. You are walking through the front door of the retirement zone. And now, your host, Tom Matt.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tom Matt Show. Happy New Year. This is my first episode of 2025 recording. Couldn't think of a better person to have on with me here. My guest coming up here is a blast. The man himself, Robert Bryce, will be in here in just a second. But remember, our last show, which is airing in 2025, as everyone knows probably, because it is 2025 now, was Justin Grinnell, and we talked about There's No Shame in Your Game, the Game Day Men's Health Show. And that was really just greatness because Justin Grinnell is very diversified when it comes to the fitness angle, but also talking about his new endeavor with his dad and this big giant franchise that's growing like crazy, Game Day Men's Health. Their business model, I read up on this thing, everybody. This thing's solid. I mean, and I'm going to be getting more and more information about this for you. So go check out that episode because it was brand new. And Game Day Men's Health, which is blowing up all over the country, is going to be something you're going to know about. You need to know about, especially for men. And they're going to have it for women here coming up too. Okay. Today, oh man, flamethrower. Last time I had him, I called it flamethrower. I'm calling this one robust. My boy, Robert Bryce, the greatest guy ever. Robert Bryce is a Texas-based author, journalist, podcaster, Substack kingpin, and I'm going to learn all kinds of Substack stuff from him. And I want everybody who listens to the show to please, please, please go check out Robert Bryce and go subscribe to his Substack because I'm a rookie with the Substack stuff. I don't know much about it. I was just talking to Robert about it. He is really into it, and his material is so good when it comes to energy. He has been publishing and writing and speaking for a long time. His articles have appeared in numerous publications all over. Wall Street Journal. He's testified before Congress. His books, his documentaries. The guy's multifaceted. What'd you call it, Robert? We're both digital creators. I said creators. You said digital. What was that?
We're in our digital decrepitude. That's the
digital decrepitude. So
yeah.
That means we're both old guys who kind of create content, and we're good with it.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Bring it, baby. I mean, we did.
So happy 2025 there, T Matt.
Yeah,
Always
you
happy
too, brother.
To be on the show.
I just want to remind everybody. We talk about electricity here on this show, and with Robert, but we also remind everybody that us baby boomers, we did invent the internet. Okay, enough said.
Well, I sat by and watched it happen, but I've been buying computers for the entirety of the computer age. I bought a laptop computer that actually ran Microsoft Word off of a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive. So yeah, I've seen, yeah, I'm old. I've been around.
Well, there's wisdom that comes with this decrepitude thing. And and you know what, being out there, being alive is so great, and it's so much fun talking to you about these things. Robert, the first segment, we always like to catch everybody up on family and what you've been doing
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to let you roll with this thing. I'll give you the signal when we're coming up on break here. But go ahead. I'm looking forward to hearing about your adventures all over the globe. Go ahead. As far as energy goes, let's talk, bro.
Oh, well, I'm incredibly fortunate in my life and my career, Tom. I've got Lauren and I have been married 38 and a half years. She's a very lucky
Congratulations.
woman. We have 3 great kids. They're healthy. They're happy. One's in Berlin, one's in Los Angeles, one's in Denver. Had them all home for Christmas. So that was an amazing time. Had great fun with all of them. We took them out to eat and spoiled them rotten, which I think that's okay since they're all grown up adults now. But yeah, I've been traveling a lot. We went to Chile in October. I lectured there, did a lecture on mining, and I went to Chile to tell the miners how to mine. I didn't actually, but talked about hard rock mining, what's going on with the energy transition. Going to London next month to do a lecture there on energy humanism. Going to, where am I going? Charleston next week to talk about generation in the U.S. electric grid. So I'm living the dream, my friend. I'm incredibly fortunate to do what I do. It's my purpose and my passion.
Well, and thank you for catching us up. Robert Bryce is our guest today, everybody. Calling this one robust. The only thing I want to talk to Robert about, because we always talk energy with Robert. Robert is our energy expert. He's the man. He's done all the books. He's done all the videos, all this kind of stuff. The one thing I want to talk about is what I always refer to as the network. We'll get to that kind of stuff. to finish off this segment, though, I want to talk about you and your career with refiring, the Substack, the publishing. I mean, you have refired so many times. We're just talking about this pre-show, everybody. Robert is a perfect example of what we have to do when we're walking through life. Okay, we're doing this sprint through life. If you watch some of his videos, I mean, the guy just told you he's in about 15 different countries all over the place. He's all over the place talking. People need to pick his brain, but I want to pick your brain, and then you can share with everybody else about the Substack stuff, because that's really important for people to get the right point of view from the man who, I mean, you give it to him straight. So please talk about that Substack thing and educate us, would you please?
Sure. Well, so just a quick bit of background. So I've been a reporter my whole career. I've never had a real job. And so, in the 1980s, I was sending out letters in the mail with an old-fashioned stamp, where you put the stamp on the envelope and you send it off to an editor and, to a magazine or somewhere and say, this is what I'm thinking about writing about. Are you interested? And I had a folder full of rejection letters for, years, and I finally threw them away. So that, of course, changed with the advent of the internet, and I was able to write for other publications. And over time, as you said, I've written for a whole bunch of different ones: Christian Science Monitor, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, blah, blah, blah. It was fine. But now, what we've seen is the decline in the credibility of the legacy media, and it has been very rapid, and they've done it to themselves because, I read the New York Times anymore. And I came from the left. I used to think this idea of the liberal media was a fiction. It's not. And ever since I really dug into energy and power, and we're talking really 25 years now, when I wrote my book on Enron now and published in 2022 or 2002, I realized, no, this isn't about ideology. It's about simple math and physics, this energy and power stuff. And so it changed my politics, not to one of being a right winger, but very much a centrist, but one who's an energy humanist. I'm for people. I am opposed to anyone who wants to limit energy, because if you limit energy, you limit human capability. So now to Substack. So written for a lot of publications. I pitched editors for years and years and years, for decades. Oh, do you like this idea? Here, I got an idea. And they would say, yes, no, maybe. And then eventually maybe it would be published and they'd put a bad headline on it, or maybe they'd pay, maybe they wouldn't. With Substack, I can write what I want, when I want, how I want, with the graphics that I want, which is incredibly important to me because I make my own graphics and I make them very simple. But when I'm talking about numbers and physics, those things matter. So the power of Substack, the different levels of it are very powerful. I've started doing a podcast again, but I've also just seen that this capability that you can get on Substack by producing your own content, owning your own subscribers and your subscription list, and then going paid. And I have some articles that are paid, some that aren't. It's incredibly powerful, and it's really changed the course of my career. And I'm 64. I'm going to be 65 next July. And that it now, at this point in my career, it's incredibly gratifying to have that kind of ownership and control. So I just think it's marvelous. And I think it's really has been already a revolution and a revelation in the media business. And so someone like Barry Weiss, who was at the Wall Street Journal, then at the New York Times, she started a publication on Substack called The Free Press. She now has 1 million subscribers. It's incredible. Now, I don't have 1 million, but I have plenty, and I'm trying to grow it. robertbryce.substack.com. But what we have seen obviously the internet changed the media business, and dramatically so. Craigslist changed the advertising business, but now we're seeing the explosion, or rather the detonation, the destruction of a lot of legacy media outlets, and Substack is part of the answer that's stepping into that void.
Well, that's what happens with being in a capitalist society. You put it out there and let it roll on its own. Let business run business, and guess what happens? Really cool things become real. And it's like the internet came from the government back in the day, but then when they started to see that they could monetize this thing, it'll all work out. I'm going to take this thing to break here, Robert, so bear with me here. Calling this one robust, everybody. Robert Bryce is our guest today. Robert Bryce is the energy expert in the U.S. He's my friend. He's a great guy. Love talking power and energy. And we are going to do that throughout the rest of the show, talking about all the things that Robert's doing and his viewpoints on where are we going in 2025 with our energy and into the future. You're listening to The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second segment of the Tom Matt Show. I am your host, Tom Matt. My guest today is Robert Bryce. Remember Substack, go to Robert Bryce. We're going to pump that up a lot because Robert's a good guy, and there's good information there. There's podcasts there. There's all kinds of written, his books. You can go on Amazon. You can go all over the place and look at his videos. We'll talk about that. Robert, before we get going back on the content again, I gotta plug my guys here. All of our people who are helping us become what we are. Ameriprise Financial, Craig Stiles, Craig. He can help you plan for the life you want in the future. That's what he's doing for us. He is our guy. He has all of our retirement zone savings. Thank goodness. Just had him on the show. We just did our 2025 show with him. And so you need to check that one out because he had all kinds of good information. I have a lot of good feedback on the YouTube. A lot of people really like that and like what Vanessa's doing with making that more popular out there for YouTube. So I appreciate all of that. Check all those out. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Call Craig, 1-800-528-1355. His local number is 517-483-4893. Craig.stiles@ampf.com. Offices are located at 2651 Coolidge Road, Suite 103, East Lansing, Michigan, 48823. Don't worry about the East Lansing thing, everybody, because Ameriprise is a massive company, and they're trustworthy, and that's the whole thing. That is the whole thing. Stations that have carry us now, have carried us in the past, and including the Michigan Talk Network, WGHN 92.1 in Grand Haven, WJM 1240 in Lansing, Michigan, the flagship of the Michigan Talk Network, WJRW 1340 in Grand Rapids, WKOQ 1490 Muskegon, Whitehall, WIPV FM 94.5 way up north in Mackinac City up in northern Michigan, beautiful northern Michigan, love that place. And, of course, our PBS affiliate, WKAR, AM 870 out in East Lansing, Michigan State University, and simulcast at 102.3 FM. Again, thank you to Craig Stiles for creating Decedary Analytics, which puts him over the top with all the analytics because his algorithm is proprietary, and we are making light of weighted decisions with that algorithm, and that's how we got a really nice return. I won't say. If you want to know what our return was from last year on the show, go listen to Craig's show because he told everybody how we did, and it's a fact. So go check it out. All right. And again, thank you to Steve and Ivy Guru for putting us on the Michigan Talk Network. All right. I'm excited again to talk to my friend, Robert Bryce. Getting this guy on the radios is challenging because Robert is all over the place. He just gave you kind of a snapshot of his career with a Substack. Retirement King. That's what he is. He's a retirement king. I got one question for you before we get into all of the nuclear and all of the election and all of these things. You know me, Robert, as the old telecom guy from the university, and I've always been a pipe guy. I've always been a transmit guy. That's my education. Both of my degrees are telecom. It's all about to me, it's all about the transmission. It's all about the pipe. All right. We got all these data centers going up all over the place. We got power usage going up all over the place. And finally, we're getting some semblance of normalcy with thinking about how we're going to generate all this power. But my thing is like, Robert, how are we going to transmit this? What's the plan? Can you kind of illuminate that, please?
Well, sure. And how long is the show? Because there's a lot to talk about here. But so we know everyone has heard this, or we're seeing a massive increase in power demand, right? That we're because of artificial intelligence, heat pumps, electric vehicles, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all of this. So given this demand growth, the thinking is, well, we just need to massively increase the size of the electric grid in the United States. And I've looked at this many times. I reported on it many times. In fact, I was interviewing a woman this morning, Jean Rees-Rollins, who is an expert on all of this. Because the system, there are many reasons for it, but because the electric grid in the U.S. is so big, and it is vast. I mean, it's millions of miles of wire. And it's so complicated. The idea that we're going to expand it and do so rapidly, double or triple it, which is what this silly Princeton study did, said a few years ago, it's not going to happen. So in short, the electric grid that we have today, that is the poles and the wires, largely the system we're going to have tomorrow. So, but that's only part of the discussion. The other things that I'm doing is tracking the rejections of renewable energy projects. And this is something I've been doing now for 15 years. So the three issues you have to deal with when you build any kind of energy infrastructure is where are you going to put it? How are you going to connect it? How do you pay for it? So both of the first two issues of how you're going to connect it is very difficult because you can't build much grid capacity. But then where are you going to put it? That's the focus of the renewable rejection database, which I've now been maintaining for 15 years. And I just added another entry just this morning. The city of Honolulu just issued new restrictions on new wind turbines. And in fact, the wind turbines that have been built in the region are going to have to be taken down in the next 6 years because they don't fit with the new restrictions. So all of this is the point to get to, which is that we have to be very sober when we think about energy and power and how the system works and how it's been working. And the way it's been working is largely the way it's going to continue to work in the future because of the just simple math and physics and land use constraints all fitting together in this big picture of physical stuff, which is different from the internet, which is not physical stuff.
Right. And that's the thing, everybody, because you have to understand electricity is electricity. And so you have to have some way of transmitting this. And again, coming from my perspective as a fiber copper guy, I mean, I'm calling this show robust. We need robustness in our energy systems. We need redundancy. We need people like Robert Bryce. And Robert, I wanted to say the little segue when you were talking about your chart that you made today. People can go find that at Substack. You're putting all that up on Substack, right? So anybody that's listening to us on the internet in Hawaii and you want to look, go check it out. I'm telling you, this stuff is out there, and that's what I love having Robert here. All right, obviously the election is a big turning point for lots of things. I'd like to get your opinion. I know the previous show that I had you on, we talked about it obviously before the election occurred. How do you feel about what has occurred with President Trump and the big flip that happened? And you won't finish this because that's a big question, and I'll give you the signal and we'll go to break. But can you start that thread, please?
I'm no big fan of Trump. I'm certainly no fan of Kamala Harris. He won. I think more directly, she lost. I mean, as the incumbent Democrat, she had all these advantages, and she was an awful candidate. And, Trump has his own special brand of awfulness, but he wasn't as awful as she was. But the fact is that he beat her badly, and it was an embarrassing loss for the Democrats. And I think it is going to require a real reckoning within the Democratic Party for them to understand just how badly they've misread the electorate, and in particular the working class. And I know we're running up against the break. Let me just give you one quick point. I posted this on LinkedIn this morning. There were a lot of surprising results in the results of the election, right? And the fact that Trump won all the swing states, which no one was predicting. But here in Texas, and I'm not bragging on Texas, I'm from Oklahoma, in the Rio Grande Valley, heavily Hispanic, in the 4 Rio Grande Valley counties, Starr, Willacy, Hidalgo, and Cameron counties, 1.4 million people, heavily Latino. In each of those counties, poverty rate exceeding 24%. In 2016, Hillary beat Trump by 60 points, 60 points. In 2024, Trump beat Harris by 16 points. It's a 76-point swing.
And we're going to take that and go to break. Robust is the title of this episode. Robert Bryce is here, and I just love talking to Robert. It's so much fun. I'm going to pump his Substack more. If we're going to have redundancy and robust, we have to understand how this stuff works, and it's a passion of mine. Please, please, please check this stuff out. You're listening to The Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to our Segment 2 sponsor, Craig Stiles of Ameriprise Financial. For more information on services provided by Craig, please visit ameripriseadvisors.com/craig.stiles or by calling 517-483-4893. You're tuned in to The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Tom Matt Show. I'm your host, Tom Matt. Our guest today is Robert Bryce Studley. Read his books, go look at his movies, subscribe to his Substack, and help my friends, because people that come on this radio program, they're doing this to help other people understand and bring their knowledge, and they're sharing it for free. So please, if you support them, then I can continue, and we continue to do these things because, we are what we are as the older, decrepit digital people that we produce this stuff. Brock Fletcher is the sponsor of this segment of the radio program because I trust Brock. Brock trusts us. I'm going to see him next week. Love the guy so much. He's got his 2025 up on our website now. You can go check that out. And that's doing well on YouTube too. People are looking into the future. That's why Robert's here. Robert Bryce is here because we're going to talk about all of these things. But first, write these numbers down. 517-853-6408. 517-303-3262. I'm going to repeat that. 517-303-3262. Go online to kwsellingteam.com. Or, as you know, or if you're new to the show and the website, at the bottom of the website is our sponsors area. You can go there and you can click right on through TomMattShow.com. Please do that. Sell your home without the hassles, just like we did. Buy your home without the hassles, just like we did, thanks to Mike Dedman. And Mike, he's a star over there. The guy is so great. Him and Brock make a great team, but the whole team is awesome. And all the things he's done with like athletes like Caleb Coley at Michigan State University and training all these athletes, that's what makes the selling team of Keller Williams here in mid-Michigan. They're the best because Brock cares about our young people and our neighborhoods, mid-Michigan, and it's Keller Williams. So again, 517-303-3262. Go to kwsellingteam.com and sell your home, buy a home without hassles with our friend Brock. Got over 20 episodes on our website. You got questions on real estate? Go check them out. Won't cost you a dime. All right, back to our show. Talking to Robert Bryce, calling this one robust. Robert Bryce is an energy expert. We just started to peel back the onion of the awfulness election, and we're going to continue to peel that back. But I want to know from Robert's perspective where we're going on. We need many sources of energy. Robert, can you do the 3-minute lesson on how energy works and why we need lots of sources? Does that sound like something we could accomplish? I know that's a big question.
Well, okay, so where to start? Yes, we need all forms of energy. We're not going to, electric vehicles, we've heard about these forever, and they're still, in fact, the history of the electric car is over a century old now, 120 years old, in fact. And still everybody brags about it, talks about, electric vehicles, the rest of it. They're still single-digit percentages of the overall new car sales after a century in the marketplace. Okay, so what's different? Nothing's different. So yes, we're going to need a lot of electricity and demand is growing, but we're going to still continue to use a lot of gasoline. Why? Because there are 280 million motor vehicles in America. So we have to be very sober. And this is one reason why, we've mentioned a little bit the Trump administration. Very excited about the incoming Energy Secretary, Chris Wright. He's an energy guy. He's actually the head of Liberty Energy out of Denver. He's a hydraulic fracturing company. He spent his whole career in the energy business. And marvel of marvels, Tom, we finally have an energy secretary who's been in the energy business. We've had a dentist. We've had lawyers. We've had, functionaries. We've had all these other, Capitol Hill staffers. We've had a former governor of Texas. Now we have someone who actually knows the energy business in the Department of Energy. It's incredible, but very hopeful that Chris is going to shake things up there, which it's badly needed in the wake of I would say a disastrous Biden administration in terms of their policies that they promoted that are really fundamentally anti-consumer.
Well, the confusing thing, Robert Bryce, our guest today, everybody, we're calling this one robust, talking energy. The confusing thing that to me, and I follow me. I read lots of media. I send you articles, when I come across stuff from the Wall Street Journal all the time. It's like, okay, so first thing, the Democrats come in and they cancel the pipeline, do all this stuff. But then I hear, and I don't know if this is true or not, that we are actually producing more oil now than we were. But you have all these other policies, so you get these mixed messages all the time, Robert. And it's like,
sure.
What exactly is happening?
Well, this is one of the things that's, somewhat anomalous with this administration, which arguably has been the most anti-hydrocarbon administration in American history. Remember, they paused the export of U.S. LNG, which was a stupid move, frankly. And I use that word stupid. It's the right word. They were bowing to the extreme climate activists in doing so. But it's very clear now that the Europeans are desperately in need of U.S. LNG for energy security, because it was just in the last day or so, the Russians are no longer sending gas into Europe. And it's a key change, right? Because the Europeans had been dependent on Russian gas now for decades. So the importance of the change now in this administration from from the Biden administration, which is clearly anti-hydrocarbons, to now the Trump administration, which will be pro-hydrocarbon. That's important. But it's also rather extraordinary that despite all the policies of the Biden administration in trying to limit drilling, et cetera, that in fact oil and natural gas production in the United States have set records. And in fact, I think now we're at 110 billion cubic feet of gas per day in the United States, something like that. That's more than double the level of since 2008. It's just incredible how much hydrocarbons we're producing in the United States.
Doesn't that reflect? Robert Bryce is our guest today, everybody, calling this one robust. Doesn't that reflect on? I mean, if you try to squeeze the pipe and you try to limit the supply, but the supply continues to grow, to me that says, well, we must have lots of supply, and so. Right? I mean,
well, that's part of it, Tom, but I think it's important. I wrote a piece on my Substack called Iran Unplugged. So robertbryce.substack.com. I encourage you to read it. But Iran has the world's second largest natural gas reserves and the fourth largest oil reserves, and they can't keep the lights on. Well, why is that? It's because it's a corrupt government. And I wrote in the piece, electric grids will reflect the societies they power. And if you have a corrupt society, the grid isn't going to work. It's just the reality of it. So why has the U.S. been successful in all kinds of energy and power infrastructure now over a century? Well, it's in large part because we have the rule of law, and we have people who make sure that people pay their bills. In Iran, the mosques, schools, hospitals, they don't pay a power bill. Well, you can't give it away forever. I mean, you can give it away for a while, but eventually the system crumbles because the systems have to pay for themselves. So when you have the mix of strong government and entrepreneurial capitalism, as we do in the United States, good things happen because people act in their own interests. Whereas in Iran, you've had these mullahs have been in charge now for decades, and they've run the country into the ground, much as like the Chavistas have run Venezuela into the ground, another hydrocarbon-rich country. Or, the corruption in Nigeria has hobbled that country. So, yes, other countries have bigger hydrocarbon reserves and resources than the U.S. We're just exploiting them better because we have the rule of law and we have this incredible system, this incredible flywheel of entrepreneurial capitalism that is working within the constraints of an imperfect system, but one that's a hell of a lot better than any of the others around.
Okay. Robert Bryce, our guest today. Great answer, by the way. Excellent. I mean, it really does come down to brains and money. I mean, all it is. We're calling this one robust, everybody. Robert Bryce is our guest again. Robert, we're going to come up on break here, so I'm going to set you up for this one.
Sure.
As far as generating electricity, we've talked about the robustness, and we're going to sprinkle that throughout the show. But I'd love to pick your brain more on the new sources of where people should really, with our votes, where should they be encouraged to become educated? Is it in the understanding nuclear? Where is the gap? Because we have some kind of learning gap. Go ahead, take a couple seconds and explain that, would you please?
Well, sure. And I said before, the system we have is largely the system we're going to have, and I think that's true. And what are we seeing in the electric sector in particular is a lot of coal being displaced by gas. Now, what is the longer term? I think we should be moving more toward nuclear power, but that's going to take a while and longer probably than we have to discuss before the break. But nevertheless, there's a lot of potential in nuclear energy, and we can exploit it. But we're going to have to get busy. There
you go. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how we can get busy, how people can continue to become educated about this, how you can support your states. You're listening to the Tom Mann Show.
Thank you again to our segment 3 sponsor, White Law PLLC, where justice meets compassion. White Law is your advocate in times of need. We are here to listen, support, and fight for what you deserve. Contact White Law today for your free consultation. Visit us at whitelawpllc.com or call 517-777-9785.
Welcome to the Tom Mann Show.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Tom Mann Show. Our guest today is Robert Bryce. Robert, please plug. We're going to give you a couple of shots to plug where people can find you. We're going to have some really cool conversations here coming up about the Osage decision and the article you wrote about that. But please let everybody know how they can find your fine work.
Well, I'm easy to find on the interweb, on the Google. robertbryce.substack.com is where I'm doing almost all of my writing these days. I also have 2 documentaries. You can find them at juicethemovie.com and juicetheseries.com. 2 documentaries. I'm very proud of them. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. Oh yeah, I'm on TikTok, baby.
You got that right.
I'm on TikTok. So yes, I have I'm not the king of the internet, but I'm easy to find.
There you go. Okay, that's Robert Bryce, and he's calling this one robust. We talk energy with Robert. If you haven't seen or heard or read the book, Killers of the Flower Moon, I had to ask Robert the title of that because I couldn't think of the title during break. And that's an excellent book. I read the book. I've never seen the film, but I'm sure it's got to be great. I know I heard of it. But the Osage decision, did I say that correctly? Osage?
Osage.
Okay, so the Osage decision, this is a microcosm of the United States. If you haven't followed this, I'm going to let Robert share the story because this might, and you got plenty of time because we're going to take as much time as you want, even go into the next segment if we need to. But this whole thing, because our whole country, if you agree with me, if you do, great. Our whole country is a microcosm of what you're going to tell us the story here, isn't it?
It's interesting. I hadn't thought about it as a microcosm, but I'll just lay the story out. So first, my roots in Oklahoma are long and deep on both my mother's side and my father's side. My great uncle homesteaded in the Cherokee Strip Land Run of 1892. I'm a member of the Cherokee tribe. My father was incredibly proud of being Cherokee. And my uncle Ernie Rapp, was a member of the Osage tribe. And in fact, he was born in Fairfax, Oklahoma in 1909. So he had a front row seat to the Reign of Terror in the 1920s when a bunch of whites from the outside, including Bill Hale, led a reign of terror against the Osage, and dozens, perhaps hundreds of Osage Indians were murdered for their mineral wealth. And mineral wealth was distributed by head rights. And my uncle Ernie had a portion of a head right. My cousin Nora now has a portion of an Osage head right. So this story matters to me. It matters to me a lot. And I know the chief of the tribe, Jeffrey Standing Bear. He went to school with my sister in high school. I had classes with his younger brother, Patrick. So it means a lot to me. And so now, why about the wind business? So what happened in Osage County is, in fact, unprecedented. And the way that this Italian company, Enel, went about their business is the arrogance is just unbelievable. Briefly, what happened is that that wind company went into Osage County, and in going back to 2011, the Osage tribe told the wind company, you can't build your project here in Osage County unless you get permission from us. And that was the beginning of the litigation in 2011. In 2014, Enel started to build the wind project, including on land that's owned by a guy named M. John Kane, who just happens to be Chief Justice of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Today, those wind turbines were built in part on his family's land in Osage County. 2014, the company starts building the wind turbines. The Bureau of Indian Affairs sends a letter to Enel and says, you have to stop work until you get a permit from the tribe. Why? Because the tribe owns the subsurface rights. They not only own the oil and gas, they own all the rocks, all the minerals. This is what's called mineral rights. Anything in the subsurface is owned by the Osage, and that is due to the foresight of Chief James Bigheart in 1906, assured that mineral wealth went to the tribe under the terms of the Osage Allotment Act. Okay, so that's 2014. Well, then the federal government gets involved. The Osage Minerals Council and the federal government sue Enel again, and I think this is separate litigation from what happened in 2011. Long story short, on December 18th of this year, for the second time, federal court judge in Tulsa, Jennifer Cho Graves, an Obama appointee, rules on the side of the tribe and orders that Enel take down 84 wind turbines, all 84 turbines they built in Osage County by December 1st of 2025. It is unprecedented. It is a massive, massive win for the tribe, a colossal black eye for Enel, who has acted with incredible arrogance toward the tribe throughout all of this. It is going to cost Enel probably $300 million, maybe more, to take the wind turbines down. And it's a colossal black eye for big wind. I mean, the wind industry, I've watched these guys for more than a decade. They act very arrogantly. They do everything they can to run over rural communities and force them to take wind projects. And now this is unprecedented. There's never been anything like it, where you see a wind project this large forcibly taken down at the order of a federal court judge. Incredible.
So let me ask you this here, Robert Bright. That's great. So the black eye for big wind. And I've seen some of this stuff where they go with these farms, these electric farms that they're putting out there and all these wind farms. And these companies come in and they kind of sidestep the locals. And all of a sudden you got somebody making a ruling somewhere about somebody else about, they do this in Wisconsin, they're doing it in Michigan's got all kinds of this kind of stuff going on. And that's what you're talking about. When I said the microcosm of this, do you think this is transferable to these other, because a lot of the people in these communities, they don't want these things. But they get stuck with them.
That's right. Well, you're right. You're in Michigan, and Michigan has been one of the hotbeds of the resistance to big wind and big solar. And I was in Michigan now, it's a year and a half ago. I guess it was April of 23 in Ida Township, and they were fighting a big solar project. And my wife is from Ann Arbor. We drove down to Ida, and I thought I was meeting with 2 or 3 people. A dozen people showed up, all from different types of different political affiliations, different income levels, but they were united in their desire to protect their piece of the world, their bit of ground, their neighborhood. Everyone everywhere cares about their neighborhoods, Tom. And so what has happened is you see the Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defense Council, these other big climate NGOs effectively just telling rural Americans, oh, F you, take it, climate change. And they are siding with big wind and big solar. And who are these people? I see it as very much a class issue, Tom, but I think it's also very obvious what is at work. The massive subsidies that are available to wind and solar are so lucrative that you have now big law firms, big business, big lobby outfits, and big business, big corporations, big law firms, and big NGOs lining up to oppose and force rural America to take wind and solar projects they don't want. And I've cataloged this over and over in the renewable rejection database. Now I just did the calculations: 764 rejections or restrictions of wind or solar in the U.S. since 2015.
Well, that's a lot to digest, and that's why you need to really focus on going to Substack, following Robert. Robert Bryce is our guest today, talking about Robust, because it's very complicated. And it's like you folks in Michigan that are hearing this on the Michigan Talk Network, you know exactly what we're talking about here. We're broadcast all over the state. We're, Wisconsin, they hear us over there as well. This stuff is happening. And, before the show and listening to all this stuff, we were having some yucks about, and you were helping correct me on my neurolinguistics about don't say just, it's sneaky and snaky. I'm looking at this note and I'm saying, these wind and solar, they're sneaky and snaky. They're just. They're all just people. Sneaky and snaky.
If I can add one quick point on what's happening in Michigan. So I'm not a partisan. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm disgusted. But when you look at Michigan, right, it's voted Democratic, although Trump won Michigan, though, didn't he? Won the swing state. Yeah. Well, the legislature there and your governor are Democrats. And so what has happened in Michigan, as well as in another heavily Democratic state, New York, California, and Illinois, in the past 2 or 3 years, they have all passed measures through the legislature that give the bureaucrats, in your case, in Lansing, the authority to override local communities to force them to take solar projects they don't want. And so you've had a ballot efforts and a ballot initiative to change that in Michigan now. But this is indicative of just how unpopular these wind and solar projects are, that big wind and big business have aligned to get the legislatures to take their side to force rural communities to take these projects. That's how serious the friction is.
And this is where, again, circling back, everybody, Robert Bryce, our guest here. I'm going to take this through to break here because we're coming up on break, Robert. We're calling this one Robust. Let me tell you, the Republicans just flipped Michigan. I mean, so they flipped. So we've got to understand that we become more educated and we vote with our heads instead of what you just see on the TV and these biased opinions of these talking heads. Robert spoke of it, and this is why his Substack is so popular and becoming more and more popular. And Substack itself is popular because legacy media is dead. They give us bull crap. And it's like, if you want to drink that Kool-Aid, you go right ahead. But I'm telling you right now, it's all about money. It comes down to the money. You have to become educated. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this, where we need to become educated, continuing on with my man, Robert Bryce. You're listening to The Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to our segment 4 sponsor, Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Tom Matt Show. For those of you who are hearing this, or if you're on the podcast, good for you, because this segment typically has really good stuff. It's a longer segment. Robert Bryce is our guest today, calling this one robust, talking about energy. Robert is the man. I mean, when it comes to it, Texas-based author, journalist, podcaster, film producer, public speaker, all those things, hire him. I mean, the guy brings it. Brings it. Okay, we're talking in a previous thread of the last segment about the Osage decision, and Robert can finish that story, and then we have some more educational things coming at your way about energy. This is all about energy. Robert, would you please finish your thoughts on Osage and why it's so important for people to understand this microcosm, as we talked about with the Michigan thing too, please?
Sure. Well, so I told you earlier, I've been a reporter my whole career, and I used to think the liberal media was a fiction. I don't anymore. So I've mentioned this Osage decision in federal court in Tulsa, unprecedented ruling, unprecedented. Nothing else like this has ever happened at all, anywhere in the United States or even around the world. There have only been a handful of wind turbines that have been taken down ever due to local opposition. And I think there was one in Falmouth, Massachusetts. It was 2 wind turbines. This is 84. Okay, so now it has been more than 2 weeks because the decision was handed down on December 18th. There has not been a single story, Tom, in the New York Times, New York Times, there's none in the Wall Street Journal, none in Bloomberg, none in Washington Post or NPR covering this article about the Osage decision. It's incredible, absolutely incredible that the alt energy business has such a sway over legacy media outlets that they won't even cover the story. And so I mentioned Enel has to take the wind turbines down. 84 wind turbines, 150 megawatts at a cost of roughly $300 million. That's their estimate. And according to the judge's ruling, restore the land to its original condition. Further, the judge ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, including the Department of Interior, represented by the Department of Justice, and the tribe, and awarded damages. Now, the damages weren't enormous. I think the tribe had a reasonable belief that they should get paid more than $100 million because of the damages. The judge did not give them that, but she gave nominal damages and ordered Enel to pay attorney's fees. Now, one other quick point regarding the attorneys. Enel has now had over 30 different lawyers work on this case. 2 of the main firms that are working for Enel are Gibson, Dunn, and Norton Fulbright. These are 2 of the biggest law firms in America and, in fact, the world. Norton Fulbright has 3,000 lawyers on their staff. So here you have a multinational company based in Rome, goes into Osage County in Indian country, Bigfoots them, tries to ignore them, tries to, run roughshod over them. The tribe says, hell no. And this is partly a testament to Chief Jeffrey Standing Bear, to Everett Waller, the head of the Osage Minerals Council, standing up and saying, no, we're not going to put up with this. And also the late Joe Connor, who did heroic work on this. But the Osage tribe said, we're not going to put up with this. Are you crazy? And here we have now, more than a decade or more than a century after Chief James Bigheart had the vision of understanding the importance of mineral rights, that the tribe has prevailed in federal court in an unprecedented case. And I get worked up about it because I've seen how the wind business acts in rural America. And this is such a massive win for both rural Americans and for Native American sovereignty. It's just an absolutely incredible result. And even more incredible, or just as incredible, that the effing New York Times and the rest of these characters, these reporters who think they're, covering energy and power, they won't write about it because it doesn't fit the narrative around alternative energy.
Well, if all the deplorables and all the garbage people out there, if they could just get a little more educated about this stuff, maybe they wouldn't be, labeled that way, because these big companies come in and they big time people because they think they can people are stupid, and they're not. People are not dumb. And it's like, it's so irritating when big companies or highly educated, supposedly, people, they have this attitude where they're talking down to us with this deplorables and these garbage people. We just want to have solid energy consistency. We want to have a strong economy. I mean, I even had Germany in my notes here. I don't even think we're going to get to that. But we've got to have this for our economy to grow, for our children to flourish.
And I think that that's one of the reasons why Trump beat Harris so badly. The Democrats were bought into, in a major way, into this climate catastrophism. And it's not it's when you look at the Gallup polls, when you look at any polling, the issue of climate change is a very low priority for consumers and voters. I had one other quick point there that I was going to make. But just about the whole issue of alt energy and solar and wind and the rest of it has nothing to do with climate change, Tom. Nothing to do with climate change. It's all about money. And when you look at the massive amount of subsidies that are going into those sectors, and now this has the wind and solar crowd quaking because they're afraid that the Trump administration is going to roll back these massive subsidies. And the subsidies are, in fact, massive. And I'm writing a piece about it for my Substack right now, robertbryce.substack.com.
There you go. And that's where we're going to find it. Now, getting back to where we were talking about earlier about educating people and teaching people just the basics of how to vote when it comes to climate and when it comes to climate catastrophication, becoming educated on coal, nuclear, oil, gas, all of the sources. Robert, what are the snapshots that we need to let people understand? I mean, we've talked about the robustness of the network. That's going to take time. The nuclear thing, that's going to take time. So please help us understand so that people, when they frame this up in their head, they know how to vote correctly and be smart with their votes. Please go right ahead.
Well, I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote. People can vote however they want. But my answer to, or the way I would answer what you just said is, I'm an energy humanist. I'm for more energy. I'm pro-people. And what do people need? What do humans need? What in particular do women and girls need? They need electricity. They need it cheap, abundant, reliable. And we've got this idea, when we've been, frankly, just bombarded with propaganda. And that's the right word. It's the right word and the wrong word. The difference is, as Mark Twain said, is quite a large thing. It's the difference between the lightning and the lightning bug. The propaganda that we've been inundated with around climate and climate catastrophism has made people believe, we in the U.S., we're going to lead and the rest of the world is going to follow. I'm sorry, it's just not true. There are 2 billion people in the world today who are still cooking with traditional biomass. A quarter of the world's population is still cooking with wood, dung, wheat straw. It's incredible. And more people die every year. 3.2 million, according to the World Health Organization. More people die every year. Most of them are women and girls, by the way. 3.2 million per year die from indoor air pollution caused by low-quality cooking fuels than die from AIDS, HIV, cholera, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. And yet we're just inundated with these claims of, we just need to use less energy. And whereas one acquaintance told me a long time ago, energy's too cheap. I thought, for who? It's not too cheap for you. You're rich. You can afford expensive energy. But people who live on the edge, who live on the very low rungs of the working class, they can barely afford the food on their table, much less more expensive gasoline. So we need to adjust our thinking and become, instead of catastrophists, become energy humanists.
Humanists, and I like that a lot. Robert, now that we have the new administration coming in, and you got this drill baby drill thing, is that going to affect what is going to be happening? Should they just be patient with all of this? Because I noticed in Michigan and going to Wisconsin, a significant drop in fuel prices.
Yeah.
Kind of just out of nowhere. It must be a new supply somewhere. Can you help people understand more about that, please?
Well, sure. And regarding the Trump administration, I was just looking at a piece that was published on Heat Map today, but it's about Chris Wright, who's the incoming Secretary of Energy, who I consider a personal friend of mine. I think he's wonderful. And why do I think he's so amazing is because he's an energy humanist. He sees the crying need for more energy in the developing world. And, one of the things I love about Chris, he has a favorite hydrocarbon. His favorite hydrocarbon is propane. And why? Because it's portable, it's flexible, it's a very high, it has high energy density, and it can help resolve, in many cases, this energy poverty issue of women cooking with biomass. So the fact that of all the appointees, and Trump has really stumbled on a lot of these appointees, including Matt Gaetz. I mean, what a knucklehead. But Chris Wright, absolutely spot on. For once, we have someone who really knows the energy business. But as far as the drill baby drill thing, whatever, that we're producing record amounts of oil and gas. The Permian Basin in West Texas and eastern New Mexico is just producing staggering amounts of energy. We are now the world's largest, I think, LNG exporter. We're the key exporter into Europe. The U.S., not by, some massive, super efficient vision of policy, but because of entrepreneurial capitalism, private ownership of mineral rights, we have emerged as the energy superpower in the world today.
There you go. Robert Bryce. Robert, I got just enough time for about a minute and a half takeaway. You want to give us a takeaway on this one called Robust?
Oh, sure. No, well, first, thanks. It's just always great fun, Tom, to talk about these things. And, I'm incredibly lucky to do what I do. It's my purpose and my passion. I get to, talk about these issues. It's just an incredible opportunity. I'm so fortunate in my career. The people who are listening, I just encourage you to, understand what's going on. Read. Don't believe anybody. Don't believe me. Do your own work. But all of this, what we're inundated with around energy and climate issues, a lot of it is just flat propaganda. So I encourage you to educate yourself, know your math, know your physics. Subscribe to my things. I'm proud of what I do. I don't carry water for anybody. But energy is the most important business in the world, and every other business depends on it. So I encourage you to learn about it, and don't be afraid to be pro-energy and pro-human.
Go to Substack. Robert Bryce is his name, Bryce. Robert Bryce. Google him. Call this one Robust. Always remember, before you can share love with others, you must love yourself first. Like to close the show every time with that line, and we are out of here. Thanks again to Robert Bryce for being with us. Sandy, Craig, Brock, all of our sponsors. We will talk to you next weekend, everybody. It's been a fabulous show, and we hope 2025 is going to be good for you. Have a great week. Go out and ignite your life. Remember, the Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Lastly, I always like to say thank you so much to our production team, Mitch Anderson and Vanessa. You guys are killing it. Thank you for what you're doing, and 2025 is going to be magical. Appreciate everybody, and we are out.
The Tom Matt Show is produced by Mitch Anderson of Black Circle Studios. Original music from the Source of Light and Power by the Ark of All.